I've got a most wonderful guest today. You're going to love watching him and listening to him. His name is Dan Armstrong. He's an author, he's a magician, he's a speaker. He has done so many marvelous things. We're going to talk about writing nonfiction and fiction. He's got two books. One is autobiographical, the Adventures of a Real Life Cable Guy, a memoir of career, and Smart Dust, The Dawn of Trans-Humanism, a science fiction novel based on real technology. Plus, he's got another book coming out that I'm going to let him tell you about as well. Dan has made 8 trips to Japan to perform street magic, and he is a heart-centered speaker who challenges audiences to serve others in a hurting world. And he's my guest today on All Things Rex. I'm so thrilled that he's here, and we're going to bring him on right now. So Dan is coming in. We're going to unmute him, and we're going to, can we remove the cover, Ava? There we go.
There we go.
There, thanks, Ava. Ava Manuel is back in the background producing the show, and thank you so much. And here we are with Dan Armstrong. Dan, and we see Smart Dust next to you. So good to have you here. Welcome, my friend.
Thank you, Rex. So great to finally meet up with you.
Absolutely. In the flesh online. So Dan, let's just jump right in and go. How did your journey begin? What defining moments, from your childhood to now, have made you the person, or have made you make yourself the person that you've become?
Well, thanks, Rex, for asking me that. I was born with a cleft palate, which is a hole in the roof of the palate, in the roof of the mouth. So to eat, to drink, anything it would just come up through the nose, and of course that was a travesty in those times. Back then, they did surgery on me. I don't remember when. I wasn't aware of it, but apparently they could not fix the problem. So they also couldn't create a prosthesis to block the hole until my mouth was growing at a slower rate. So that became an issue growing up, being mocked and bullied until I was 5 or 6 years old, when Dr. Muhammad Mazahari made my first prosthesis. And even after that, because the mouth grows so much, you'll find the birth defect wasn't solved. So visit after visit, and prosthesis after prosthesis, speech therapy, those kind of things would put me in a position of being the blunt of being made fun of by kids my own age. And so I was pretty traumatized as a child, and to think that I would be able to speak to an audience in my lifetime, like I have for the last 50 years or more, 60 almost, without hesitation, is a miracle. I when I speak about this to audiences, when I talk about overcoming, I use an acronym, the word STOP, STOP. S being a struggle can become a strength. A tragedy can become a triumph. An obstacle can be overcome. And your pain can actually become a purpose, a pleasure, or promise.
Wow. Keep going. This is great. This is great.
Well, the thing is, Rex, we all have something that is keeping us back from our purpose, or perhaps our perceived purpose. And sometimes we have a difficulty getting over the things that we think are holding us back. See, other people, especially my parents and my siblings, they didn't see the speech impediment or the travesty of a cleft palate as a problem. They ignored it. And we, as a family, we started singing and traveling all across America, churches, fairgrounds, campgrounds. And I was put out front to sing a solo quite often and talk. Hi, everyone. But the way I spoke was very, very nasal. There's a story in the book Think Big that came out in May. And Think Big was a collaboration effort put together by Kyle Wilson. And there's many other authors in the book that share their stories. Brian Tracy is a co-author, Chris Gronkowski, and some other great authors, Bob Bodine, Brian Buffini. But my story was about being bullied and mocked and how that affected me. I was held down on a playground over some ants, and they made me spell my name over and over, not realizing these ants were crawling all through my clothing, biting me. And I was, the best to my ability was pronouncing my name, A-R-M-F-T. All the air was coming through my nose, F-T-R-O-N-G. And I couldn't say G, as I'd say G. So they just laughed at me. They spit on me. They slapped me. And all this because of the birth defect. So that pain eventually became a purpose because other people, and not just a birth defect, but we all have something that we just struggle with. And if I could be a voice, I say, hey, if I could get through this and speak to audiences, you can get over your ADHD. You can get over your fear of elevators. You can get over your fear of loving someone, overcoming the obstacles, taking the tragedy in your life and making them a triumph. That strength that is the end result of a struggle. And you don't always just arrive. It's an ongoing process. I still struggle with the idea of having a cleft palate. I still hear myself in the back and pronounce every consonant to be careful how I speak. I have to slow down. I might be speaking rapidly, but I'm actually looking for words where I don't have to use certain consonants.
Wow.
Oh yeah, yeah. But it's just one of those things that I grew up with and had to overcome. And that pain of that birth defect has become a purpose. It's become a promise. It's become something that I can publish. And I was afraid to many years ago, but I'm not now because I know that I'm still on a journey. And as long as I know I'm on a journey, I'm going to still be as vulnerable and authentic as I can be to help other people.
Well, that is truly beautiful, powerful, and positive. That is really, and so what I want to do is I want to remind the viewers who are watching right now that if you're gaining something from the story of Dan's young life and what he went through or the struggle, or people who could benefit from this story, because boy, we sure do know that bullying is an issue. My kids, by the way, well, before they say that, go ahead and share the show out. Call up a friend or invite it or email it or share it, like it, leave comments and certainly ask questions, because you can do that while we're live. You can share it and like it after and once it's in replay. And by the way, the very links that we're using live right now for you to watch it are the very links that you can share as replay links, because the replay will be immediately available after the show is broadcast. We complete the show. But what I wanted to say is, when my children were in middle school, bullying was rampant, and the then principal refused to acknowledge that they had bullying in the school. And so I was doing some interviews just trying to find out what was happening in the school. And there were stories of kids. One kid, they thought he was taking the bus home, like 2 or 3 miles every day. And only after about a year and a half or 2 years did they discover that he had been walking home every day, because he would get so tormented on the bus that he stopped going on the bus. And until these kinds of stories were brought to the principal's attention, because that happened off the campus ground, but it was students on in the bus. But so much happened on campus, and then it happens now, in social media for kids, like on other. So to have gone through that, your story, and to come out and say, look, you may be challenged or have a hardship or have a birth defect, or you might have something that you were born with, or you had early on, but to use your acronym, your struggle, and is just so one heartfelt and two, I think necessary for people to hear. Because we do hear the stories of and I've had some on my show who are quadriplegics and overcome these immense
Mm.
odds, but all there every one person's ceiling is another person's floor kind of thing, and so there are so many different ways to have had a hardship in one's life or a struggle in one's life to overcome. So I can't thank you enough for sharing this. So let's continue because it is truly powerful.
Well, we all have flaws. And I think what happens is when someone has a flaw, sometimes they look for someone else to bring them down to maybe not their level, but to show that they have some kind of prowess over somebody else. And they're not willing to admit to themselves that they've got some issues. And bullying doesn't stop when you're kids. There are people that wear suits and ties who are in charge of other people that are bullies. I know firsthand knowledge of situations where you just cannot believe that someone would treat another human being in such a way to belittle them and berate them, and yet it's out there. So overcoming that, a lot of it comes down to finding your purpose, but also finding the value that you have. And sometimes, as I mentioned it in the book Think Big, sometimes you have to borrow the belief of other people. My mother picked me up from that school that day after the teacher uh, chided me and said, "What's the matter with you? Are you retarded?" And that those words are still in my head. But my mother took me home and she put me in an Epsom salt bath to start healing the wounds from the ants. And I was weeping. And I remember she said to me, "I don't know why you're crying so much because God made you so special. This problem that you have in your palate is going to help other people." Well, I could not grasp that concept at 8 or 9 years old. But the more I speak, the more people come to me and say, "Thank you so much for sharing this story. Oh, you're so successful." No, I am still climbing a ladder with a flaw, and I'm okay with that flaw. I accept it. I am not perfect. I never will be perfect, and I'm okay with it. I'm
Wow,
okay with it.
wow, that is truly a beautiful and a testimony to the type of person you are and the mindset and the feeling set that you embody that sees you through your everyday life. There's so many people who, faced with a difficulty, buckle,
Yeah.
and don't. And that's not to criticize or judge them in any way, shape, or
Hmm.
form. And then there are those who for whatever reason, or because they have a support team around them, or someone like your mother,
Yeah.
to say, hey, this can be a blessing for you that is yet unrealized. You know, just you'll grow into it, kind of thing. You'll realize it
Yeah.
as you go along. That is so truly powerful and so truly amazing. Now, and the reason why I said what I said about the quadriplegics is because some people go to the and quadriplegic just is they go to the very extreme examples to say,
Hmm.
look, these people have overcome it. Anything can be extreme for the child who's 3, 4, 5, 10 years old, 15 years old. Whatever form of bullying they're going through can be extremely extreme. So I love what you said. That you're still in process as opposed to
Yeah.
you know
Well, as you said, we all, it's subjective reality. What is happening to me is the height of it is it's like the song, and they call it puppy love. Donny Osmond, they call it puppy love, but it's real love to the puppy.
right, right.
So, my subjective reality is that this was horrible. But like you said, I used to go to the gym years ago and lift weights, and I walked in there one time, and there was a guy there named Mike Menser and Ray Menser. They were USA bodybuilders, and I was just like, oh my gosh, that's them. And I realized every time you walk in a gym, there's always someone better off than you, and then there's this scrawny kid who's trying to get his muscles up to something. And I thought, there's always someone worse off than me. So I just have to accept this is where I am. I'm on my own journey, and I've got to stop comparing myself to other people. Oh my gosh, Rex, he's a fantastic author, and he wrote this book that's incredible. I got to stop that. I wrote my book. This is my subjective reality. This is my gift to you. You are a gift to me. When I realize that your life is a gift, then I become aware of who I am in your life. And this is when we do this, then both our worlds are better.
Wow, wow. Again, very beautiful and very powerful and very positive, and I appreciate it. You know, saying what you just said, there is a legitimate phenomenon, of having a monster under your bed when you're a child, or in the closet, or a boogeyman out to get you, or somebody lurking outside the window. They're not there. They don't
Right.
exist, but in the mind of the child, they certainly do. And how do you know that that's the case? Because their blood pressure goes up, their heart beats more, they sweat, they have the exact same symptoms of fearing a real life fear. And so
Mm-hmm.
they're terrified, they're afraid. They go, Mom, Dad, whomever, come in. There's a monster here. And parents come in and go, Look, there's no monster here, and shine the light and everything. Kid goes, Great. They close the door. They go, Mom, the monster's back. The monster's back. They are responding. Their body is reacting as if there is a real threat. So, for anyone to not understand how important it is, for whether it's a real threat or an imaginary threat in this case, that the human, the child, the adult responds the same way, or they react the same way rather. And
Yeah.
that learning to respond is actually the key, where they understand that they have choice. And sometimes when the kid looks under the bed and sees there is no monster, that is enough. And they go, You're right, there is no monster here. And so then they can go to bed. Other times they may have to do it 100 times. One of the beautiful things about people who, when they're terrified or their minds are racing and they can't sleep, oftentimes, or they watched a scary movie, and they're like now afraid in the dark, the best thing that they can do is not shut the TV off and then try and go to bed, but to change the channel to something funny or romantic or life affirming that they enjoy. And so it's about, directing your attention from what was a problem, or, a hardship, into, or terrifying, into something that is, life affirming, fun, enjoyable, positive, or, a different way of thinking about it. So shifting from the less than glorious to the glorious, or as people say, making lemonade out of lemons. But so this is really a wonderful process that you're sharing with people. And again, remind everyone of your stop, because that's truly beautiful.
Yeah, I mean, it's a paradigm shift when my mother said to me, and then actually on top of my mother, I mentioned the Dr. Muhammad Mazahari, which, can I tell a real quick story about him?
Please, please,
It was
yeah.
amazing. So I'm on my way back from San Diego a couple weeks ago, and I land in Chicago O'Hare Airport, and I'm walking to my next flight, and I'm standing in line, and I hear this voice, "Hey, Dan Armstrong," and I turn around, and oh my gosh, it's Danny Mazahari. I went to high school with him, and I haven't seen him in years. And I said, "Hey, Danny," we gave each other a hug, and of course, we never would have hugged each other in high school. But we see this guy, 1,000 miles from home. So I hugged him. I said, "Danny, I got to tell you, I just wrote a paragraph about your dad, Dr. Muhammad Mazahari, about he was a hero of mine because he was always encouraging me, Rex. He was always saying, you're doing very good, Danny. You're doing very good. You're growing up very good, very good. Always very good, very good, very good." I wanted to see this man because he was so positive. So I was telling Danny this. He goes, "Oh my gosh." I said, "Was your dad still around?" Because my parents are not. And he said, "Yeah. My dad's 95." And I said, "Oh my gosh, you're kidding me." He goes, "Yeah." And actually, he visits the clinic once a month on Tuesdays. I said, "Danny, can I have your number? I'd love to know when he visits. I want to go. I want to see him." Well, that next Tuesday, Danny sent me a text that said, "My dad's going to the clinic." So I made my way to the clinic, and I waited out in the parking lot, and they brought him out of the car. He was in a wheelchair, and they took him in. And as they're going in, I walked up beside him and I said, "Dr. Mazahari, my name is Dan Armstrong. Do you remember me?" And he looked up like through the fog of history, and he said, "Oh my, how is your mother?" Because they always had conversations about my progress. How is your mother? And I had to tell him that my mother had passed, and he was quiet. We went inside, and I sat down beside him, and I had the book, Think Big, right here, and I opened it up to the chapter, and I highlighted the page where I mentioned him, and I said, I wrote a book. I'm part of a book, and I wrote a chapter, and there's a paragraph about you, that you're my hero. You helped me through my life. And I told him, I said, you watched me grow up, and I've watched you grow old, but I will never, ever forget the life that you put into me. Well, he looked down, and I grabbed his arm and just kind of squeezed a little bit, and I started to weep, realizing that this was probably the last time that I would see a hero in my life who had such a huge impact. And I say this, Rex, because so many people in our lives have made an impact in our lives, and we don't send them a note. We don't send them a text. We don't send them a letter. And then we find out the opportunity is gone, and we missed it. And there's a scripture in the Bible, James 4:14, that says, "Our lives are but a mist. They're a vapor. They appear for a while and they're gone." And in the course of all of history, yeah, our lives are like this, like nothing. And yet, we could have such a huge impact in other people's lives if we would take a moment and breathe into their lives. I took that opportunity that I didn't think I'd ever have. Meeting his son in an airport, I mean, the chances of that, God was going, yeah, I'm going to put Danny right here and Dan Armstrong right here, and I'm going to make it so that Muhammad Mazahari is traveling to the clinic on this day, and I had the opportunity to be there, but I took advantage of it. I took advantage of the moment.
Wow,
Not getting light or weepy here, but
that is beautiful. Well, I completely understand. I'm sure other people are weepy too. So, but you held up your book. Let's tell people where they can get Think Big, and then we'll talk about each of your other books too, and where they can get those. But
okay,
because it's the story, it has the story you're describing. Let's
yeah,
go with how they can get that.
and much more. They can go to Amazon and just type in Think Big. Now there are other books. The easiest way I think would be to go to danarmstrongtheauthor.com. danarmstrongtheauthor.com,
Well, we
and they'll
should,
see all three books are available there.
and we should have that on a scroll in hopefully just a minute or two, where it will
Sure.
crawl, banner will scroll across the bottom. danarmstrongtheauthor.com.
Yep.
All right, excellent, very cool. Very cool. We're going to have to take a break in about 4 or 5 minutes, but before we do, let's talk about the difference, because you've written an autobiographical book. This is actually an autobiographical story inside another book, but and inspirational as well. Excuse my dogs. But so, what is it like to put pen to paper to write your stories, and then also see them in print? Because a lot of people want to write a book and they want to know.
Yeah.
So this is the adventures of a cable guy.
Yeah. The Adventures of a Real Life Cable Guy. This is my first book. This is true stories. I would come home and tell stories to my wife, to friends, and they said, "You got to write this down. You got to write these down." So I started to write them down, and I handed it over to an editor, and they lost it. And this was back when it was a disc. Yeah, and I didn't back it up on my big computer. So they lost it. So about 6 months went by, and I didn't do anything. I guess I'm not supposed to write a book. Well, I did. I rewrote everything, and maybe it was better that it happened, because they're probably better stories. But yeah, it was one of those things that I just always wanted to do, is tell my stories. I saw someone say, "You're a great storyteller. You want to hear some funny stories? Right here, The Adventures of a Real Life Cable Guy." Um, 70 stories, 200 pages, just a bunch of funny stuff that'll capture emotion. You'll get angry at some, you'll happy, you'll be sad, you'll cry at some. Some of the stuff and the people I've seen and met would just, I mean, people don't believe it. Is this for real? I saved a guy's life one time. I was the last guy to see somebody. That's in the book. Um, Darlene says, I want to write a book, just don't know where to start. I would just start. Just start writing your heart. Move with your emotions. Dedicate 10 minutes a day and then up it to 20 minutes a day. Write something and then give it to somebody else to read, because you need an objective viewpoint to criticize you in a good way to help you become a better writer. I want to watch your time there, Rex. I don't want to go over what you got planned.
So I'm moving my mouth, but nothing's coming out of it. No, we're good. We've got a couple of minutes. We'll be fine.
Okay.
But so what do people do that, how do you, I know this is, I see this everywhere, anytime that anybody talks about writing, they say, what about writer's block or that blank page, or, I don't know how to start, or I don't know what to do. What do you do? What is there, do you have an approach to that?
Well, sometimes writer's block is just a signal to walk away, go for a walk. And I was finishing up Smart Dust last spring. I was working on it, and I went away on a trip for a week, and I thought, I've got 5 hours every night after my work was done. It was out in Ohio or Kentucky, I can't remember. And I thought, okay, I got the hotel room to myself. I've got 5 hours. And you know what happened? Writer's block. I had 25 hours in that week that I could you can write a book in 25 hours if you really were motivated. I couldn't think of one thing. I shut my laptop and said, you know what? I'm not supposed to do it. But when I came home, that stored up energy just went crazy. It just was released. And probably when I got home, 3 or 4 chapters were written that evening. I think it was a Saturday afternoon. I got home, and I think I wrote until like 4 a.m. on Sunday morning. And another thing about writer's block is sometimes you got to pick up your laptop and go to another room. I have a studio outside my house at the tail end of a outside building, and it's all insulated. I got electric, I got heat, I got air conditioning, I have lights, internet, and I will move this whole situation out there. Other times I come right here. Other times I go to my bedroom and write. So sometimes you got to change your surroundings, your environment, to stop that block.
That's awesome. That's great advice, because one of my favorite sayings is, you can't push a rope. It's very difficult. And and if you're trying to do something and just keep pushing and pushing and pushing, you end up, the energy gets caught up in the pushing and doesn't allow for the release and the flow. So to walk away, to change an environment, to shift your attention to something else. I used to do that a lot in college writing. I would be writing my thesis for papers, and I'd say, what do I want to tell my, the readers of this? And I would think about it for a few months, then I go watch television.
Yeah, exactly.
And then somewhere down the line, it'd go boom, and I'd go in and I'd start writing. But if I sat there waiting for it to happen, come on, give me the nickel drop, hurry up.
The nickel drop, I love that. I was asking for a penny sometimes, because I was like, what is going on? And something else I would do for those people who get that writer's block is, I love research. I love research. My other book, Smart Dust, is loaded with stuff that can be backed up by research. And sometimes I will stop. I can't think of where I want to go with something. And I'll talk to you about Smart Dust after the break, about how that came about and what kind of a writer I am, because it depends on what kind of writer you are. Because there are engineer writers, there are architect writers, there are gardening writers. Different styles would need different types of motivational strategies to keep you going, or even to get you started. So that's a whole nother segment, I think.
Well, we have that to look forward to after this break. And again, we're talking with Dan Armstrong. He's the author of Think Big, Smart Dust, and the Real Life Adventures of the Adventures of a Real Life Cable Guy. 3 books that you can get. It was crawling below. It was Dan Armstrong, the author.com. You can get all 3 books there or from Amazon. And the live number of viewers is growing. So before we do our commercial break, please go ahead and share the room out. Continue to share it. Go ahead and like it. Leave comments down below. get into the chat room if you're watching. But if you're watching this in replay, also please leave comments and please share the show, because whenever you leave comments, whenever you engage with, the video that say on YouTube or wherever it is, that helps the algorithm send it out to more people. So if you've benefited from the show and you want other people to benefit, the best thing you can do is to engage and to share. Not just liking is okay, but go ahead and like it, subscribe, do things that let the algorithms know that you're interested, and then it'll share it out to other people who are more interested. And so without any further ado, I want to thank Mo Rock, the publisher and CEO of the Los Angeles Tribune, for this show and for all the various shows that are available on the Los Angeles Tribune, and for all the work the Tribune is doing, bringing you great things like the New Psychology of Winning tour with Ace Productions, and the Can You Really Think and Grow Rich, again with Ace Productions, the tour that we just completed. And there's another one coming up in October, so be sure to stay tuned. And with that said, we're going to switch to this word about the Los Angeles Tribune. We'll be back with Dan Armstrong right after the break.
Welcome to the Los Angeles Tribune page. Here you will find original news programming, exclusive digital events, and shows that are directly from the community. At the Los Angeles Tribune, we believe in giving a voice to the voiceless. We are proud to be the only national brand to empower everyday people to make a difference. Since 1886, our reputation has been built on truth and responsibility. Thank you for watching and making a difference.
For general inquiries, contact today. Thank you on behalf of the Los Angeles Tribune team.
Well, I'm so thrilled to be here with Dan Armstrong, and we're back, and I'm so happy that we're having this discussion. Started very powerfully with the tale of overcoming, a disability or a hardship from childhood. And if you're just tuning in now, go back and watch this show. Go back to the very beginning and watch it from the beginning, because you won't want to miss that, I promise you. And we're going to continue now. One of, I think, the hardest things in the world to do as a writer is to actually write a novel. You're playing the role of God. You're inside people's heads, not just your main character, but you can be inside of all of their heads, technically. But I mean, I suppose you have to make a choice. Dan's novel, Smart Dust, maybe it's prescient, in other words, he's based it on research and what could be coming down the pipe. So I want to talk to you, one, about the book and maybe some of the premise of the book, but also about the process of writing a novel versus what we've been talking about in terms of writing nonfiction.
Well, thank you, Rex. I can only speak to the type of writer I am because I did a little test on what kind of writer I am, and that is I am a gardener. That is to say, when I write, I have to let the book, the story, grow, and as it grows, it does this. All right, so it branches out and does this, and suddenly, when I'm rereading the book, I realize, how do I get this point or this person to interact with this person? And then that's where the engineer or the architect has to kind of design a plot line so they touch. Like, what do they have in common, or what is it that they're both working towards or working against? And what kind of a scene or scenario would put them at odds with each other, or in collusion, or a collaborative effort in? So some of the book, Smart Dust, The Dawn of Trans-Humanism, was engineered, but a lot of it was gardening. And here's the thing about gardening. You really have to be open to suggestions, in the sense that I would go to bed and I would say, okay, Lonnie is over here and Mace Gilbert is here, but they have to meet each other. How can this be? Or at the end of the book, how can I bring this character back to make this the pow? I mean, the thing that makes you at the end of the book say, oh my gosh, it can continue, or this is a movie. People have said to me over and over again, and the reviews and emails, this book is like I'm reading a movie. Or I can't tell you how many people said this book needs to be a movie, but despite that. So I go to bed and I wake up in the middle of the night or in the morning, and I'm laughing, and my wife or one of my kids, what are you laughing at? And I'll go running out to my computer and I'll say, this is it, this is it, this is it, this is it. It's incredible. It's part of the book, because I'm a gardener, grew together without my effort. I wrote every word, but the ideas were coming from without, not always from within. So the book actually grew, and I remember the last week that I worked on the book was July of 2021. I started the book in 2017, before a lot of this technology was even out in the open, and smart dust, stem dust, some of the gene manipulation therapy that's out there. I was writing this in this book, so I had no idea what was coming down the pike. So as this book came together in July of 2021, I remember the last week I was down in Ocean City, Maryland. I was in a like a first floor apartment rented for a week, and just to get away from everything, and going on walks, but coming back and finishing the novel and feeling like I can't remember who said it, but I am grateful for the ideas that have used me. Some great man said that. I am grateful for the ideas that have used me, and that's kind of how I felt. It felt like God gave me some messaging, not His voice. I'm not one of those people that can hear God's voice, but I feel like my spirit is moved in such a way to write something that has an impact. And Amazon, the reviews have been fantastic. People have found it. I'm getting people are reaching out to me that I've never heard of, saying, "Hey, can you come speak?" Or can you, I did something recently where it opened up another door, and I think that's going to happen more and more. But I'm going off track here. But the point is, as a gardener writer, sometimes you got to trim the weeds off too, and that's the hard part. Because my next book, Smart Waves, has 25,000 words in it, but I think I'm gonna have to start over.
Completely? Completely?
I think I'm going to have to look at it differently, just because of what's coming to me now. I was up the other morning till 4 a.m. writing, going, oh my gosh, how can I tie this into the 25,000 words I already have? So it's tough sometimes.
Well, I mean, I've got a bunch of books sitting in the background, nonfiction, of course, but I mean that happens. I can download. Or as one of my favorite filmmakers, David Lynch, would say, it's like fishing. You're catching ideas as they fly by the space,
Yeah.
And so, I understand that. So suddenly, I get inspired and I think, oh, I could work this into the old book. But then it's like this book is going to be, as wide as your bookcase. So
I mean, look at that. I mean,
right.
Now they are a large type, but yeah.
So somebody did ask a question a moment ago, and it kind of piggybacks on what I wanted to ask. So in the growing process, some people use note cards to keep track. Some people mind map. The question was, do you mind map, or what do you do in order to grow your stuff? Some people write from the end. In other words, they sit down, they go, I know the story, and then they just write it. Some people, or they get to the end, they go, here's the ending. So how do I get to that from the beginning? And they backtrack their way through it. And other people write, and it gets revealed to them as they go along.
Yeah, Rex, that is exactly what happened. It was revealed to me as I wrote it. And it's hard for me to teach someone who's an architect writer or an engineer writer, or but that question.
Can I don't want to interrupt your train of thought, but can you kind of explain a little bit the difference between gardener, engineer, or architect type writers?
Sure. An engineer would write out. He would probably, well, let me put it this way: an architect would know what the building looks like, and he would go back to the beginning and lay the foundation, already knowing how many stories, what kind of elevator he has to put in, how many sheets of glass are necessary. And an engineer would say, okay, I know how to build this. I have to research this idea and this idea to get to that story. And when I say story, I mean a level of the building. A gardener is like me. I started out with a concept and started writing, and then I realized, I need somebody else. I need another character that could pick this up and take it in another dimension. Well, when I did that, I realized, okay, he has to have a boss and a job, and he has to have a car, and he has to have a pet. So gardening is not easy. I'm telling you, it is very difficult because you can get really lost quickly. What I recommend, and what I'm doing now for Smart Waves, is I have a big sheet of paper, like a poster board, in front of my desk. And when I get an idea that I really like, or a character idea, I'll write it down on an index card and I'll tape it up there. And then eventually I'll look up and go, oh, you know what? He should go over here after this character's developed. And then I'll take this idea, this concept of smart waves, RFI or FM transmitting ideas that, oh, they should be introduced here. So I'm moving this around like Rubik's Cube. But again, as a gardener, I'm not necessarily knowing where I'm going to end up. What is great about gardening is, to me, it feels spirit-led. For an architect, it might be their way of expressing themselves. So it's difficult for me to land on something, and I'll tell you why. I deal with, and I think I told you or maybe somebody, I deal with synesthesia, which is when I hear music or I see colors and shapes, and then I see people the same way. So sometimes when I'm developing a character like Balandamu, who is a Ugandan soldier in the book Smart Dust, he is seen as a terrorist. However, as I'm developing his character, I see a scar from a machete from a previous fight that he was in the Sudan in the book. And then I start getting this feeling like I know this guy. And I start seeing colors and shapes of who he is. So when I start to write and explain things, emotion that is coming from here is now inside words. And the words start to impact people. And they start, whoa, I can actually see what he's writing. And so many people have said to me with the Adventurers book and Smart Dust, they say, I feel like I'm inside the story. I feel like I'm there. Someone asked me recently, how did you come up with the way you walk across a room in a book? I say, I get up and I do it. I don't just write it. I get up and I literally walk across the room and I notice what's going on in the room. I hear the click of my shoes on the hardwood floor. They sound like crickets on a late night stroll. So I'll get that idea. Oh yeah, they sound like crickets on a late night stroll. Put that in the book. Now it draws a picture in someone's mind. And not only are they there, but they're starting to feel or sense all this. I like to touch the senses, the eyes, the smell, the hearing, the touch. And I think when we develop emotional writing, I should write that down. When we develop emotional writing, I think our stories have a bigger impact. I think we have maybe a more authentic way of describing what we're doing when we involve ourselves in the writing process by acting it out. One time I went out in the rain and stood there and felt the rain dripping into my body, and then walking back in the house and I was wet, and I'm writing the sensual, the feeling of it, and once I started to feel it, then I could write it because I was experiencing it. It was going from the objective, oh, he walked in the rain, to the subjective. The wet drops soaked through my skin. I could feel a drop under my shirt as it dribbled down over my stomach. Suddenly, your audience is feeling it. I'm making an emotional impact. I'm gonna have to write that down. Emotional writing. I like that.
That's good. That's great. No, and I think you're really giving, an idea of your process to people. And as you said, not everybody will have a similar process or an affinity for what you do. But for those who do, this is truly, truly meaningful. And for those who don't, it's a nice way to understand that there are many different ways to get somewhere. and
Yes.
that they may learn a new system or a new way of being, or they may just naturally do it. So this is really a really wonderful conversation. I'm so glad that we're having it. Um, it just, to me, is the idea of crafting a story. And I've written
Yeah.
screenplays, and screenplays are skeletal, and they aren't anywhere near as come. I mean, they need to be good, and many of them aren't. And there's nothing I hate more in the world than reading screenplays. I got to tell you, and I read so many of them, but I hate reading screenplays. Reading a novel like your novel is fun because it's a completely different kind of adventure. And it takes you incredible places. Do you think that this is gonna? I mean, I don't want to detract from what we were talking about, but Smart Dust, is this a prediction of what could be, or what might be, or what will be?
Yeah, I mean, any technology has some. Obviously, every technology that's developed is for the benefit of mankind. I truly believe that. What happens in the story in Smart Dust is that it becomes a tool for nefarious purposes. The idea is that these nanotechnology, Smart Dust, which is actual real technology, this Smart Dust is impregnated in the human population without consent. So that is the premise of the book, and there are antagonists and protagonists, and there are characters that you'll fall in love with, and then some that you'll hate, and that's where that emotional writing comes into. That you want to design a person that draws out the emotion of your reader. Like, man, I don't like this guy. He resonates. There's this cognitive dissonance with his character that, yeah, I know someone like that. Okay, so, but this technology could be used in nefarious ways, and it could be used for great things. Interestingly enough, in doing research, I came upon a technology called Thera grippers, THERA grippers, Thera grippers, and it's a technology. It's nanotechnology. It's based on the parasitic worm that travels through. It can like, it looks like this, and then it goes like this and grasps, and then releases its poison inside someone's body. So uh, this thing called Theragrippers, and you can look it up. Johns Hopkins is actually the one that released the photo of this technology, and it looks like a star. It's a nanotechnology, and they can put little doses of medicine inside of it and inject it into the body, and then when it gets to the area that needs the medication, it opens up by its temperature regulated, so it'll open up and grasp onto the artery or whatever it needs to release the chemical or the medication that would address the disharmony in the body. So Smart Dust, in a sense, is the same kind of technology. Again, I didn't know about their grippers 4 years ago, even though they probably have been around longer than that. So there is a definite cautiousness in the book, because I don't just talk about the nanotechnology. I also talk about the way we are being psychosegmentated. We are being torn apart in our country and the world. And it's not a political statement. It's simply saying that when there's a governing body that wants to separate each of us based on our gender, our race, our ethnicity, our culture, our religion, our political affiliations, the smaller the groups we get, the easier it is for any larger body to control the smaller bodies, because the smaller bodies are now giving up their identification with another smaller body, because now they're separate entities, and we don't have fellowship with them. This something I brought up many years ago when I was in a church and the pastor didn't like it, and I said, when we get to heaven, I think we're going to find out that all of us were wrong. And what I meant was that none of us have the whole answer. I mean, just look at, in the Christian church, you have Lutherans, Methodists, Mennonites, Pentecostals, Episcopalians. I mean, they can't all be right. But yet we identify with one of these groups as well. We don't have time for those people. And what I'm saying in the book is that the more that occurs in society, the more that a governing body can separate people into smaller groups, we lose the capacity to breathe into other people's lives, you know. And I think being aware of who we are in the life of somebody else, we can touch them despite the peripheral differences. I think we need to learn to love despite what we don't agree on.
Wow, well
That's
said.
the message. Yeah,
That's
that's in the book.
Love in spite of disagreement. I mean, that surely could go a long way. I'm going to agree with you that certainly politically what's going on in this country is that people are battling each other instead of loving each other. They're hating each other, and the more divided we become, as you say, the easier it is to control because they're more distracted and deflected and misinformed we all become. Certainly, you know, there's conspiracy theorists, and then I'm sure that your book gives rise to conspiracy theories, you know, by people who read it. But one of the cool things about art and science fiction, and music and film and books and poetry and dance, is that they often inform us of what we need to pay attention to grow as a species, and also to be aware of the misuse that we could have as we do advance in the world. You know, I mean, fire at one time was both, you know, an occurrence from lightning strikes or whatever. And then when humans got to control it, it was a wonderful thing, right? You could now cook your food and keep yourself warm, but you could also use it to burn down somebody else's village. So, you know, everything that is powerful or everything that is useful has any number of ways of being used.
Well, and I think part of the book addresses, and there's a statement in the book that I wrote, and I read it the other day, and I thought, did I write this? But the great thing about this type of writing is, you, like you said earlier, you can create your own world with your own cities and actually philosophies, because it's fiction. I can do this because I'm the author. I'm the creator of this. And one of the things I wrote was, because I was looking back at, I quote, I look at Hitler, I look at Stalin, I look at political parties who have too much power, I look at things that have been said and done, and I do reference current political leaders from both sides without saying their names, but maybe capturing a portion of their personality and say, watch out, this is dangerous. But one of the things I wrote was, and I wrote down here so I wouldn't forget it, history is not our teacher, history is a menace to our conscience. History is not our teacher, history is a menace to our conscience. And the point is that we see history, we read it, but we repeat it. We allow the same circumstances, situations, events to duplicate. And yet, you know, I think it was Mark Twain that said, history doesn't repeat itself, but it certainly does rhyme. And my point was that when we look back at history, it's a menace to our conscience because we ignore it and we say, no, we're going to go down this path again. We're going to destroy each other. We're not going to love anymore. We're going to destroy each other.
Well, this is a really, really important point, because if history, and people should know this, if history, and a lot of people repeat their history in their daily lives. They just keep telling the same old story over and over and over about how they were broken or this didn't work or somebody was against it, whatever it might be. You know, and we hear this constantly. But if history were the great teacher, we would have learned already. We would have stopped doing the things. We would be different, but we don't. That's why they do say history repeats itself. You know, and anything you repeat, you get better at, whether it's a mistake or something talent, you know. So if you repeat it correctly, consistently for long enough, you develop a good habit, you know, and if you repeat it badly or poorly, you know, in other words, or you repeat something that is not good for you, like smoking or overeating or drinking or talking bad to yourself, you'll get good at talking bad to yourself for drinking or smoking or overeating. So, you know, the brain, it's a great point you make.
So what you're saying is practice doesn't make perfect. Practice makes permanent.
Exactly.
I think Dennis Waitley said that, actually.
He may have said that, yeah. Or some people have said perfect practice makes perfect. You know, but you know, I don't even like the word perfect.
Yeah.
But it is the idea that it does become wired in. And history, if we look back at history and don't go, whoa, we should stop. It's kind of like if you were in a dark room and all the lights were off and you needed to find the door, the thing you don't do is run, you know, at jet speed in any particular direction, because you're going to find the wall, probably violently so. And if you did, and you said, whoa, I think I need to like slowly go to the wall and feel my way around and see if I can find a window or a door or a means of escape, that would be learning from that. But so many people just keep running. You see this every day. You go to a mall and there's one door that's open and one door that's locked, and a person goes to the locked door, and what do? They shake it. They keep trying to open it. And then finally they go, oh my God, and they go to the other door. So the human tends to repeat the things that are not useful, like running headlong into a wall in the dark, instead of learning from history. And what your book does, what I love about this and what I love about the conversation is that anything, no matter how frightening it is in terms of a book, a horror story, science fiction, whatever it might be, can serve to be a real wake-up call.
Yeah.
Even if it seems like it's way out there, because, like it's not plausible, it's not possible, it's never going to happen, anything. It can still serve to be a wake-up call because of what it does to the reader when they understand, guess what? We have some responsibility here to be different from what we were. So
you actually hit the nail on the head there when you just said we have some responsibility here. And I have something highlighted here. It's on page 389. It says that mass media tactics accentuate the negative. And that's what I love about the Tribune is the positive programming that you put out there week after week after week with all your different hosts. It's amazing. And I think it's so important. Excuse me. It's so important to, as hard as it may seem, little by little, look for the good in everything. My brother the other night was leaving my house, and about a mile away, he called me up. Hey, my tire just blew. Well, he was in a huge parking lot, not even a mile from me. And I said, why'd you pull over? You could have been driving. And there's a whole story there, but he could have been killed had he gone up another 500 feet just the way the road is. But he pulled over to check something, and he didn't have a spare. So we worked it out. We went and got another tire from a friend who had a truck. And the whole thing came down to one thing. There was good in that bad situation. And the more we talked about it, the more we were grateful that the bad situation happened, because it reminded us that there is always something good. No matter what obstacle, no matter what pain, no matter what tragedy, no matter what struggle, there's always good. And when we look for it, we will find it. We will find it. And those little victories of finding those little things, those good things in everything we do, every person we see, will grow. And as it grows, we will bring other people into our growth. Trees give off oxygen. I want to give off oxygen. I want to help the world. And that's who I am. That's what I do. I want to help the world. I want to help people realize that they can overcome from birth defects, that they can, Rex, becoming an author has given me the stage to talk about overcoming a birth defect. See, a birth defect is what I overcame, but these are just products of a life. And you ready for this, Rex? This book didn't happen until I was 50 years old, over 50. So if you're 40 and you're thinking your life's over, if you're 60 and you think your life's over, you've got so much potential in you. And God's given us all gifts to develop and look at skills. It's just amazing what we can accomplish when we start looking for the good and we stop looking at what's keeping us. The struggle will become a strength. The tragedy will become a triumph. The obstacle can be overcome. The pain can be a purpose.
God, that is so beautiful. That is so beautiful. And I oftentimes say this, and that, awareness is a gift, because if you're unaware of something, you're unaware of it, and if you get a pebble in your shoe and you become aware of it because it's painful, it's the opportunity to remove it. You wouldn't notice it if you didn't impinge on your awareness, right? So what you're not aware of oftentimes can run the show. It's kind of like this. If I have $100 bill in a suit coat in the closet and I don't know it, I can't spend it. I can't use it. It does me no good. But if I happen to go looking through my clothes, and I find the $100 bill, I go, wow, this is pretty amazing. I've got this gift of 100. It was mine all along. You know, it was in my possession all along. I just didn't make use of it until this moment.
Yeah,
I can invest it,
that's
or I
right.
can spend it, I can give it away, I can do whatever. But the good is all around us, and yet most people don't notice it because they don't
No,
look for it. They don't look for the good, and if you look for the good, you can find the good. If you look for the problem, you'll find the problem. So it just depends on where you focus your energy, and wherever you put your attention is where your energy goes, and that's what
amen.
you end up finding. So
You know, it's funny you said that. I just spoke to someone today. They had to drive an hour to work an hour back, and I said I used to have that problem, but let me tell you what I did. I got audiobooks, and I used half of the time there and half of the time back, so 1 hour a day, and then I do it on weekends, 360 hours a year of higher learning, and that equates to an extra 9 40-hour weeks of education. 1 hour a day is 9 40-hour weeks. And the guy said, "Holy crap! I never thought about that." I said, "Yeah, get yourself some great books on tape or books on, audio book, and listen to them while you're driving an hour a day, and you will have an extra almost 2.5 months of education while you're driving. I mean, you can't beat that. It's free. That's
that's
free
beautiful.
advice."
That is beautiful. Now, listen, we are literally at the end of our hour,
Yes,
but our time together. But we could go a little bit longer if you're willing to go a little bit longer.
that's up to you, buddy.
Well, I'm willing, but we've got a few more minutes that we can go. And what I'd like to remind people of is to push the show out, share it with other people, comment, engage. Trip those algorithms into thinking, "Wow, we got to get the show to everybody." And so you do that not only by liking, but by subscribing, by and commenting and leaving questions wherever you're seeing it during the live show or during the replay. Also, you can email the show, you can share it, you can send it off on social media, you can post it in your groups and pages and things like that. I always heartily encourage people to do that. It's nice to have a platform provided by the Los Angeles Tribune and to have Ava Manuel producing the show and running in the background and doing all the heavy lifting. But it's so incredibly wonderful to have guests like Dan Armstrong to share his expertise, his knowledge, and his wisdom that's gleaned from a lifetime of progress and becoming. So I want to thank you for being here. And I really want to give you, I mean, in some ways, what you just said was such a powerful close for the show. We could have ended right there. So, but I want to give you the opportunity to just say whatever you would like to say for the next 5 minutes, and then we will have to close the show. But whatever's on your heart to talk or share, again, maybe how people can reach you. There's Dan Armstrong, theauthor.com, where they can get all 3 books.
They can reach me there.
Okay. And so take it away. And you're available for speaking gigs and
Sure.
other
Yeah.
things as well. So yeah, cool.
Yeah. I believe in generational love, acts of kindness. There's a book coming out in December. It's another collaborative book, and I'm writing a chapter about my mother. And I won't go into all the detail, but my mother came upon a homeless woman, and she had just bought a jacket and shoes for herself. And we got to the point where we were walking, and we lost mom, and we looked back and didn't see her, and my brother and we ran back and we found her, and there she was with the homeless woman, hugging her, keeping her warm. The woman had a very thin cloth dress, barely enough covering her arms, and her legs, you could see her from her knees down, were bruised. And we know she had black toenails. She wasn't wearing shoes. She had black toenails. She was obviously very sick and bruised and lonely, very lonely and hungry and cold. Well, my mother, in her compassion, took off the jacket that she had just purchased in the city of Philadelphia there and put it around the woman's shoulders. And then she took her shoes off that she had just purchased and put them between the feet of the woman. And then she gave her a doggy bag that she was saving for my dad. And then my mother walked the 10 blocks back to the car and took the place of the homeless woman, so to speak. When I was a cable guy, I walked in a home, and this house was in horrible, unkept order, and I was very judgmental. And his sheet on his bed was an outline of a body, because the dirt would just come off his body, and he never washed. So there's literally an outline of his body from the dirt, and I judged him. It turned out he was a Vietnam vet who was dying from Agent Orange. And I was upset with him when he said, "Hey, I'm really sorry about the mess. I'm dying. My sister got this for me, so I'd have something to watch, cable TV until I go." Wow. Well, my heart broke. So I said, "Is there anything I can do?" And he said, "No." And I said, "Can I pray for you?" And he said, "Yes." So I put my hand on his shoulder right over this dried spaghetti sauce, and I didn't even feel it. And I said a prayer for him. And I found out weeks later he passed away. And I was the last person to see him. The woman came into the office and said, "I'm returning this equipment. It was my brother's, and he just passed away." She gave me the address, and I said, "Oh my gosh, I was with your brother. I'm the one that put those boxes in your house." She said, "You're the guy. You're the guy. You're the guy that prayed for my brother. You were the last person to," are you ready for this? "You're the last person to touch my brother." See, I judged him first, but then I had to learn to touch. My mother touched this woman. Some years ago, we were in a dream house, 3,200 square foot house, and lost the contract with the cable company. And I took on a job somewhere else and wasn't making money. Fortunately, we had just bought a house to renovate in the city of Lancaster. And there's an alley behind it called 81st Alley. And we came home from church one day and we almost lost everything. We had to sell vehicles. We had to sell furniture. We had to sell all kinds of stuff so we could get out of this situation. We kept the house. We rented it, but we lost it, so to speak. We were living in this south part of the city. We were the only white family on the block. We were embraced by the community. Never did I feel so loved by neighbors than I did in the city. There was a man, a homeless guy, sitting in the alley one day after church. My daughter walked back the alley and opened up. She ran back in the house. Dad, there's a homeless guy out back. We have to do something. We have so much. See, we moved from this 3,000 square foot house to a row home, and we were squashed in there. We have so much. So we went in the house and we got him some food. I went out and sat beside him and talked to him. The point is this: when we are aware of our presence in the lives of other people, we can make an impact larger than life. My mother had no idea when she sat with that homeless woman that one day her granddaughter would be saying, "Dad, come help this person who needs help." Sometimes people need help just to get out of their situation so they can grow and they can move on and they don't have to be homeless anymore. Sometimes people need to be touched because no one will touch them. Sometimes people need that letter, that encouragement. Sometimes people need a phone call to say, "Hey, I just want to let you know I was thinking about you today and you were on my heart." That's it. People's lives have been saved, have been rescued from suicide, from depression, from all kinds of horrible things because one person said, "I need to be aware of my presence in the life of other people," and they reached out. On the tombstone of my parents is etched the words, "They lived Matthew 25:40," which is the scripture where Jesus said, "Whatever you do unto the least of my brethren, so you do it unto me." That's been my life. That's been my life. My mother started it. I'm duplicating it. My children are now duplicating it. Rex, your life is an example to other people. My life is an example to other people. When we are aware of our presence in the lives of other people, we duplicate the love and the compassion that we all need, because we all have flaws and we all have defects, and we can be healed when we love each other.
Wow.
I love you, Rex.
I love you, man. I'm so happy you're my friend, and you're such a wonderful guest. I think if there's a dry eye in the people watching, they will watch again and again, and let the faucets flow. Wow, how truly powerful and inspiring! And I want to thank you for the time that we shared here now today, and the times that we share off the show. But
Yes.
I definitely, you have an open invitation to come back and
Thank you, Rex.
to inspire and to help people. And I want to thank you for being here. And for those readers and watchers and those who are listening to the show in whatever form you're getting it. Again, like it, comment on it, share it, but also know that he's got 3 books. Another one's coming out, and he's working on another. But he's got Smart Dust. He's got the Adventures of a Real Life Cable Guy, and Think Big, all available at the Dan Armstrong the author.com that you see running across the bottom of your screen if you're watching it. And if not, it's spelled just like it sounds. Dan Armstrong the author.com. Dan, I want to thank you so much for taking your time and being here and sharing with everyone who you are and who showed up today. It's been a true and real pleasure, a real treat, and a real godsend. So thank you so much, my friend, for being here.
You're welcome.
And until the next time, well, I'll see you sooner rather than later, but until the next time you're on the show, keep writing.
All right, brother.
Thank you. And keep sharing it out there. Wow.
I will,
that was
sir.
truly wonderful. So that's Dan Armstrong, and do reach out, read his books, 3 really wonderful books. And I mean that. They are 3 really wonderful books. And so you're going to want to have them in your library. And you know what? If they're available on audio, then get them on audio too. I think if you can get both, like when I buy a book, I buy Kindle, I buy the soft cover, and maybe sometimes the hardcover. And if it's available in audio, I get the audio because I never know where I'm going to be. And if I'm traveling, I might want to put the headphones on and listen to the book or read the Kindle because I can't carry all the books that I want with me and in the suitcase. So go for it. Go for it. Get his books, and you'll be glad you did. I got more impressive guests coming up in the upcoming weeks. So be sure to stay tuned. We're here every Thursday, 3 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Central, 6 p.m. Eastern, and whatever time that is in your locale. So join us live when you can. Join me here each Thursday. I have a special show coming up on a Monday. It's going to be September 12th. And I only say that because we don't normally do, I'll be doing 2 shows that week, I think. And it's going to be Gary Puckett in the Union Gap. He's a singer. He's been a friend of mine since 2010. And I'm so glad that I'm able to get Gary on the show. So many of you who are my age or younger will remember his music. And he's so busy. The fact that we were able to get him on his tours around the country and around the world for that day is for me a real treat and a real pleasure, and I can't wait to bring him to you too. So stay tuned to the show each week, powerful guests, and you'll be glad that you did. And also always share this out. So I'm going to tell you about my book, which is A Life on Your Terms: Create the Life You Want, written by me, Rex Sikes. You can get it at Amazon. And what I did, I wrote this book because people struggle. They have difficulty making things meet, whether it's mind, heart, speech, behaviors, pocketbook, their spiritual life, whatever it is. They tend to struggle. And what I wanted to do was give a simple step-by-step blueprint, a method that you could use to easily, with more fun and more rapidly, change your life. And understanding that claiming your life back and living life on your terms is really a process. But when you master your thoughts and you master your heart, you then also master the words that come out of your mouth or the things that you say to yourself. You can master your behaviors so that you get incredible results. So if you see down there, it says rexsikes.com/book. There's plenty of information there. But if you get the soft cover or the hard cover from Amazon and you take your receipt code from Amazon and you go to that website, rexsikes.com/book, I want to gift you for having bought the book with a really powerful program of principles that you can use to help master any area of your life. Again, mind, heart, talk, behaviors, pocketbook, your spiritual health, wealth, relationships, whatever it might be. It's called the Mastery Loop. It's a training. It's valued at $497. It's online. I'm giving it away absolutely free at no charge. It's a bonus for those who take that receipt code and pop it into the special box right there, what they find at rexsikes.com/book, and you'll have access to the program. It's a powerful program really designed to help you understand how your brain works, how you learn things, how you can master things and change and transform your life and get the kind of results that you want to do so that you can live the life you deserve on your terms. And by on your terms, I don't mean that other people aren't in there as well. When you create a life so wonderful that you're glad you're living it, you also help other people be glad that they're living their lives, and you become a true inspiration and an asset, because we're all in this world together. It's collaborative. So take action, get the book, get the training, get Dan's books, and come back here next Thursday after having shared the show out lots of times. I'm Rex Sikes, and what I always say is this: if you consider something a problem, mindset is such a powerful thing. If you consider something a problem, it will be a problem. If you consider something a blessing, it will be a blessing. All in how you look at it. So what to do? Celebrate everything. See you next time.